Darren, can you take us back to the night of October the 6th, 1996?
Yep.
What happened?
October the 7th, 1996, just before midnight, I used to do an extra job to help raise funds, as we did back then, you know, things were tight. And there was a knock at the door. We didn't have mobile phones back then.
And this is in Harlow?
This is in Harlow, yeah, Brocklesmead.
Brocklesmead.
Yeah. So, and there was a knock at the door, and my first thought was I'd overslept, because we used to start work about 1 or 2 in the morning, so I'd been in bed from about 7. So to get a knock on the door wasn't necessarily that unusual, because you may have overslept, and we used to help each other out. Just went downstairs, unfortunately just dressed in my underpants, got down to the stairs, opened the door, and there was 2 guys stood there. As they looked at me, the one to my right as I looked out, he looked up the alleyway outside the house. He nodded in the direction he looked, and then that was it. They just came forward. What I'd actually found out, there was a guy walking his dog, who was an eyewitness at the time, who then took his dog back and went to a phone box. There was a 3rd guy waiting at the end of the alleyway, who was at a lookout, and there was a getaway driver with a car as well. So there was 4 of them in total. But the 2 then just came forward, and I can remember putting my hands up in self-defence. I can remember my head being bashed about quite a bit. And for some reason, I don't know if I was unconscious, but certainly from this position standing to in a sort of fetal position, sitting on the floor up against the wall with my head still being pounded. I don't know if I was unconscious or I just don't remember that part. So, but then I was on the floor, and I could just remember, it's only my head I ever felt being hit. It wasn't being hit, it was being stabbed. They were stabbing me relentlessly in the skull.
With knives? With knives,
yeah, absolutely, yeah. There was 3 types of blade used on me, 3 different types of blade, which meant obviously 2 guys, 2 hands. One of them had 2 blades on the go at once, you know, so it was a relentless, violent attack. All of a sudden it just stopped. And it literally, from my memory, my recollection of the night, it just stopped. And they turned in. At no point was there any speaking, any voices. They didn't communicate with each other, not that I can remember. They just stopped, they walked out the door and disappeared, and that was it.
Do you think they did enough, they stopped because they did enough to hurt somebody as opposed to doing enough to kill somebody?
Absolutely, yeah. I spoke to the police at the time, and I was obviously angry, wanting everyone to go to prison for murder and things like this, and attempted murder. And the police said that, you know, if you would have been who they wanted and they wanted you dead, you'd have opened the door, bang, you would have been dead. This was whoever they were after, because it was mistaken identity. Whoever they were after, this was just a warning. This was a warning, a way of communicating to something to someone. So, yeah, I think they stopped because they'd done enough.
What happened next?
Well, next was a strange one. It was, I don't know how long. You know, there was a 999 call went in at 3 minutes past midnight, and 1 went in at 6 minutes. Which one of those were mine, I don't know. I think it was the 6 minutes past. I've never investigated that. Never really felt the need to. But I managed to shut my front door, which was a strange one at the time, because I don't know if I shut it with my hands, my feet. I believe I'd done it with my foot because I was sitting on the floor. And also the lock, where they barged forward and came into the house, the door had opened so fiercely, it hit the wall and damaged the handle of the lock and dented the actual wall as well. So how the door shut and stayed shut, I don't know. I then managed to crawl through my hallway, which wasn't particularly long, but it felt like a journey. And then through my living room, trying to get, I was on the floor, I was trying to get, you know, touching everything I could to help me go through the living room. I mean, blood was just everywhere. It splashed so high, I'd gone above the light switches. It was obviously on all of the carpets, the settees as I went through the living room. And made my way through to the telephone, which was in the corner. How I did it, I don't know. I dialed 999, screaming for help, you know, police, ambulance, fire brigade, anybody, you know. The woman on the phone was, from my recollection again, was absolutely fantastic, because obviously I'm talking in a fashion that's probably incomprehensible what you're saying. So she calmed me down, she settled it down, she got the information she needed. And then I put the phone down, that was it. So I just sat there then waiting for something to happen, didn't know what was going to happen. I then had the urge to phone my mum and dad. Why? I don't know. It's a stupid thing, I've always regretted this moment. So I picked the phone back up to dial my mum and dad. And the operator was still there. They stayed on the line, I don't know if that's common practice, but she was still there. I said, I want to speak to my dad. She said, well, you need to put the phone down, count to 10, and dial the number you want. Well, I did it. I don't know how I did it. So I phoned my dad and I said, can you come round? I've been beaten up. So at no point in this episode so far was I aware that I'd been stabbed. I just thought I'd been beaten up. So at this stage, I then just sat there, basically bleeding to death. You know, there was Wendy then appeared with George in her arms because son was 1 year old at the time. He was up teething with her. She then appeared, and we just sat there waiting. Eventually, there was a knock on the door shortly after. It was some neighbours who had heard the kerfuffle going on, but were a bit scared to come out because they didn't know what it was. And eventually, when they thought the coast was clear, they came out to check. But Wendy just shouted at them, so they went away. We didn't know who that was at the time. And then eventually, the police knocked. From that moment, I was just sitting there in the living room, sat there, where the blood had been pouring all over my body and pouring out. It had gone onto my underpants, and I actually thought I was sitting in blood this deep. It felt like a swimming pool, you know, a paddling pool. And I was so cold. I've never felt cold since. You know, it was just really, really, really cold. Yeah, so the police were just going everywhere, all around the house. And obviously, the police haven't got a clue who I am, what the situation is, so they've got to look at all eventualities. And then we just sat and waited, basically, waited. You know, there was all this, they kept repeating my name, you know, Darren, what do you know about a red car? Darren, who drives a red car? You know, there was this big thing about a red car, which turns out the getaway car was a red sports car. And that's what they were interested in. I didn't even know about the red car, so it was just, I didn't get the questions at the time. I just kept saying, I don't know. They then, at some point, my mum and dad turned up. There was blue and white tape outside. Another moment for my mum was the fact that, you know, as she approached the house, the policeman wouldn't let him in. And they said, look, we've done all we can for him. So to a parent, you know, that was horrendous. So that wasn't stopping me mum. So they took my mum in, took her upstairs with Wendy and George. And we sat and waited for the ambulance. And then eventually the ambulance turned up. So, I mean, Monday night, midnight, I can't believe it was that busy, so they must have been on a long tea break. They've done a fantastic job, the boys, you know. You know, keeping you calm, all that sort of stuff. Eventually, dressed most of the wounds, got me onto this metal frame, and started wheeling me out of the house. At that point, I went past what I'd been looking at the whole time I was sitting there, which no one was allowed to touch. I thought was a small cricket bat at the bottom of my stairs. As I went past, it was a meat cleaver, an 18-inch meat cleaver with a cardboard and cling film holster, which hadn't been used on me at all, so they must have dropped that. So that was just there as evidence. But that was the point I realised it was a knife, and then I realised that I'd been stabbed, and that's when the real shock kicked into the event, if you like. So, was anybody ever arrested or interviewed, etc.? No, not at all. No, there's a few people interviewed a couple of people who they thought it may have been for, as opposed they should have been the victim rather than myself. But no one was ever arrested, contacted. CID, the guy at the time, absolutely fantastic. A guy called Mick Clark, absolutely brilliant. He just said after a few days, he said, I think you've got to put it down as a bad day at the office. He said it's very quiet in their connections on the street, which would suggest Darren Barden's not known by anybody or any criminal sort of activity. So unfortunately we think this is a mistaken identity, and they came to that conclusion fairly quickly. Because it does happen? Absolutely it does, yeah, it does happen. It's you know, I actually had went on to Kilroy. There was a TV programme many years ago, you may remember. Went on to Kilroy, and the first episode that I went on to was because Jill Dando had been killed. And at the time, Jill Dando was a TV presenter. They thought had been killed by a professional hit that went wrong. So, and the TV programme was due to be about professional hits don't go wrong. And I was walking living proof that actually they do go wrong. So I got on to Kilroy on the first occasion because of Jill Dando dying, which hers was nothing to do with mistaken identity in the end. But absolutely, they were 100% convinced it was a mistaken identity. So yeah. This is 1996. You refer to. It's now 2018. Yeah. And so we don't want to give away too much in that way for you. But and now in 2018, you've got a book out. So let's skip to the good bits. Yeah. So we've skipped to the book and the 22 years. Why the book and why now? Yeah. I was told a year after the attack by Ronnie Ayres, a woman who worked for victim support. She was a victim support coordinator at the time. She said to me, "You need to write a book." She said that there's a story here. There's an incredible story that people need to know about. I barely read books, let alone be able to write a book. And joining my current work, my current place of employment, which is Hilton, they, for me, have changed me and got me back to being me again. They've made me realise there is a situation where you can have work-life balance, because I've worked very hard over the years. And it just suddenly put me in a position where, you know what, I can do that book now. And I want to tell people the story. But 16, 17 years after the attack, I had a huge mental breakdown. Went through a massive bout of depression, which was far worse than any attack. For me, it was the worst moment in my life, to the point where I was considering taking my own life. How my wife Wendy's dealt with it and the children have dealt with it, I don't know. And they're still here. Very surprising. So I wanted to tell people not just about the attack, not just about my story, but there's a way out. You know, there can be a light at the end of the tunnel, because far too many people, especially in the industry I work in, the construction industry, outside of falls from height, the biggest killer is suicide. Well, you can't be having that. And that's because people can't talk, they can't open up about it. So what I want to try and do with the book, and it sounds a bit corny, I know, but it's actually, you know, look, there can be a light at the end of the tunnel here. You know, you can let people know you've got problems and put your hand up and say, I'm a bloke. Blokes can cry. Blokes can have depression. This really happens. It's real life. You know. So,
was writing the book hard to do?
Incredibly tough. Yeah, it was. Factually, it wasn't a problem, because the story is what it is. So that's never changed, or never going to change. The hard part was, in 20 odd years, I'd never ever gone through in detail of the attack itself. But writing the book, you've got to paint a picture for the reader. Well, I've had to go through details I hadn't even thought about myself. Suddenly, emotionally, it was draining. You know, I was sitting writing and sobbing at the same time. You know, and a couple of times my wife was saying to me, you know, you need to stop. And I'm like, no, I'm enjoying myself. But it was a strange therapeutic type of process. You know, so, I mean, there's an American phrase called closure. They use closure, and I actually think writing the book was my closure. I think to actually put down on paper exactly what I've been through, not just the stabbing, but the mental breakdown as well. To put that down and put it down as openly and as honestly as I could was the bit I needed. I think if I'd have done it 20 years ago, it'd have been fantastic. If someone said to me now, you know, give me a couple of £100 and we'll cure you, because you know you're writing a book, I'd have taken that option. You know, I didn't know I needed curing until I wrote the book. You know, so yeah, it was an incredible journey to write the book. It's taken a year, 1 year to write, but yeah, it's incredible, fantastic, draining as well at times.
So you're still involved with organisations like Mind and people like that?
I wasn't. I used to do work for victim support some time ago. I've now got involved with Mind, a charity called Time to Change as well, which have been brilliant. Mind and Time to Change are one of a similar thing. Mind do the work with mental health. Time to Change are trying to create the perception around mental health, making it easier for people to talk about, which is really where I want to go. Victim support have always been incredible, absolutely incredible. So am I directly involved with them now? No, I'm not. But I'd like to push all three charities via the book and on the book launch night as well, because they all do a fantastic job. You know, so at the moment, you know, mental health is in the news, it's in the press. So it's, for want of a better phrase, it's a good time for them, you know, pushing that side of things. But victim support has always been a taboo subject, because if we accept we need a charity for victims of crime, we're accepting there's a problem out there, and we don't really want to do that as humans.
But going back to 1996, there are a number of people who attacked you and could have cost your life. Would you still like to know who did it?
Absolutely. I've never had a burning desire to know. My mum and dad have. It'll pain my mum and dad until they go to their graves. It's, you know, someone should have paid for it as far as my mum and dad are concerned. But that's parenting. You know, I'd probably want the same with my children now. As for knowing who, yeah, I'd like to know who. I'd like to have a conversation. But I've never had a burning desire for revenge or, you know, some sort of retribution on these guys. You know, so it's just something to... There's never been that in my locker. You know, it's always been, I know it wasn't for me. I know it wasn't personal. They got it wrong, big style. You know, there's a few times financially when I wish someone would have helped us out, because the system doesn't account for this sort of stuff happening. You know, I lost everything. I lost my house at one point. the financial implications of this, because I was making bad decisions, because I was chasing acknowledgement. And that was the hard part. There was a thing called the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board. Originally I got £2,000 from them, and I was told basically I should be lucky to get that. I was treated like a criminal going through that process. I was the first ever case in the UK to go to a parliamentary ombudsman against the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board, which I lost. But at least I was the first. That will never be taken away. And we highlighted a few things. I don't know, 20 odd years on, are they any different as an organisation? They may well be. But I think the desire, if someone had given me, £100,000 in compensation back then and gone, Darren, listen, you've been through a really bad experience, here's £100,000 to help you with your life. That would be someone acknowledging that what happened to us weren't my fault and it was a bad experience. No one did. And every way I turned, whether it be my mortgage company at the time, the necessary authorities, no one was interested. No one was acknowledging that this was a bad thing. And I probably spent the next 15 years after that trying to chase. I was chasing money by businesses, by my work, but what I was really chasing was acknowledgement, because I thought if I could earn a massive amount of money, I could say, look at me, I'm successful despite this. But I just wanted something to say to the world, this was really bad. And that's why I was chasing the money. It wasn't the money I was really chasing, but that's what I thought it was. And now I realise I was doing it all wrong. So I've got everything I need now. I've got my wife and kids. So
so finally, apart from you, has anybody actually read the book yet?
No, my wife and daughter have read snippets of it.
And what did they say?
It's very difficult for my wife to read, so that was hard. There's stuff in there that my daughter would never have known. So the reality of, especially the mental breakdown, we shielded the kids from a lot of that. Or when I say we, my wife did. I didn't really care about anybody during that period. So she shielded them from a lot of the stuff. So that was tough for my daughter to read. And outside of that, Steph Shilton, who works for Mind, she had a proof copy of the book, a draft copy. This is the wife of Peter Shilton, former England goalkeeper, and she's written a book, part in the book. So outside of that, no one's actually read the full version. And for me, there's going to be a few people read things in there that they're going to find tough. Especially close friends and family, people who've been on that journey with you. They wouldn't know. People wouldn't have known where I was at that stage in my life. When I wanted to end it or things like that. So there's going to be some tough reading for a few people. So,
well, we look forward to reading the book and wish you all the well with the launch.
Thank you very much.